Hey guys, welcome back to Timeless Black Excellence. This is your host, Abdias Dalisme, and today's segment is about Black military veterans and the contributions they made to America. First of all, I want to thank all the brave men and women of every color, all religions, all cultures, all backgrounds that serve and protect this country. Thank you so much. Your courage is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for your service. African Americans and other minority groups have fought for the United States throughout history, defending and serving the country that in return has denied them their basic rights as citizens. Believe it or not, racial and ethnic minority groups make up about 43% of the men and 56% of the women in the military. Now, imagine fighting for your country, putting your very life on the line, then coming back home and getting treated like a second or third class citizen. The sacrifices of these heroic men and women need to be recognized and honored. So let's pay tribute to these brave soldiers. During the American Revolutionary War, Peter Salem became a hero after killing the British major during the Battle of Bunker Hill. The battle saved hundreds of American lives. Salem received a commendation from the Massachusetts General Court for his bravery. He served a total of 4 years and 8 months in the military. Also during the Revolutionary War, a man by the name of James Armistead from Virginia gained the trust of General Cornwallis and successfully infiltrated the British General Headquarters. He provided confidential information to President George Washington, and this very information is what helped the American military win the Battle of Yorktown. After the Battle at Yorktown, Armistead later returned north and infiltrated Benedict Arnolds' army, where he learned details of British operations and prevented the British from sending 10,000 reinforcements to Virginia. As a result of the victory, the British officially surrendered in 1781. Armistead received his freedom in 1787 and bought 40 acres of land, began farming, later married and raised a very large family. African Americans were not allowed to serve as actual soldiers in the Union Army until January 1st, 1863. In early February 1863, 1,007 volunteer Black officers joined the 54th Massachusetts Infantry. The 54th Massachusetts Infantry was one of the first Black units to join the Union forces in the Civil War. And on July 18, 1863, there was the battle at Fort Wagner. The 54th Infantry Sergeant William H. Kearny risked his life to lead his troops. When the soldiers were given the order to retreat, Kearny again faced heavy fire before falling back. He was severely wounded by 2 bullets during the battle, but survived and became the first African American to be presented with the Congressional Medal of Honor in 1900. The Buffalo Soldiers originally were members of the 10th Cavalry Regiment of the United States Army. They were formed on September 21st, 1866 at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, right after the Civil War. The Buffalo Soldiers were recognized for their courage and discipline. In a period where nearly a third of white Army enlisteds deserted, the Black soldiers had the U.S. Army's lowest desertion and court-martial rates. In nearly 30 years of frontier service, Buffalo soldiers took part in almost 200 major and minor engagements. 18 African American Buffalo soldiers earned the Army's highest award for bravery, the Medal of Honor. Although Native Americans bestowed the name upon the troops, there are only theories surrounding the origin of the name. The Comanches said it was because of their rugged and tireless marching. The Cheyenne Indians say because of their ability in battle. On September 6, 2005, Mark Matthews, the last living Buffalo soldier, died at the age of 111. He was buried at the Arlington National Cemetery. Dory Miller. His bravery during the attack on Pearl Harbor has been well documented. Miller showed his bravery while tending to many soldiers, including the ship's injured captain. Miller then operated an anti-aircraft machine gun without any prior training. His actions led him to receive the Navy Cross, the United States Navy's third highest honor at the time. The 369th Infantry, better known as the Harlem Hellfighters, was an all-black regiment under the command of Colonel William Hayward. The regiment served on the front lines for 191 days during World War I. The Hellfighters fought longer than any other American unit at that time. The regiment never gave up any ground that they captured. Though wounded, they refused to surrender. "My men never retire. They go forward or they die," was said by the Hellfighters' Colonel Haywood. 171 of the Hellfighters' officers received the Legion of Merit, and as a unit, they were the first Americans awarded the Croix de Guerre, the country's highest military honor. On October 25, 1940, Benjamin O. Davis Sr. became the first African American to hold star rank in the U.S. Army and Armed Forces. Davis's service as an officer in the famed Buffalo Soldiers Regiment was enormous. He spent 4 decades serving in places like Liberia and the Philippines. He taught military science at the Tuskegee Institute and Wilberforce University. Being promoted by President Franklin D. Roosevelt, he became the first black general in the Army. He retired in 1948 after 50 years of service. His son, Benjamin Davis Jr., was the first African American general officer in the United States Air Force. Davis Jr. is a 4-star general, making him one of the Air Force's highest ranking officers. A 33-year veteran of 3 wars and son of the Army's first black general, he was also the founder and commander of the famed Tuskegee Airmen. The Tuskegee Airmen were the first black military aviators in the U.S. Army Air Corps. Before the formation of the U.S. Air Force, they were trained at the Tuskegee Army Airfield in Alabama. They flew more than 15,000 individual missions in Europe and North America during World War II. Their impressive performance earned them more than 150 distinguished flying crosses and helped encourage the eventual integration of the U.S. Armed Forces. And it wasn't until after World War II that the U.S. Armed Forces became integrated under a 1948 executive order by President Harry S. Truman. Private First Class Milton Lee Olive III received the Medal of Honor in 1966 for his sacrifice in Vietnam. At just 18 years old, his heroic act of using himself to smother a grenade saved the lives of his platoon mates. In 1975, following the end of the Vietnam War, the number of African Americans volunteering to join the Army grew. In general, African Americans accounted for nearly 25% of all enlisted Army soldiers, while making up just 13% of the population. In 1979, Hazel Johnson became the Army's first black woman promoted to general and selected to lead over 7,000 men and women. General Roscoe Robinson Jr. became the first African American 4-star general in the U.S. Army. The West Point graduate's career spanned 2 wars and 4 stars. In 1991, U.S. Secretary of State General Colin Powell became chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the highest military position in the Department of Defense, and oversaw Operation Desert Storm in Iraq from 2001 to 2004. All the information used today is from military.com, blackpast.org, biography.com, pbs.org, militarytimes.com, and cmohs.org. Thank you so much for checking out Timeless Black Excellence. Please check us out on Instagram at abdias_dalisme_42. Also at Facebook, Timeless Studios Inc. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment to all the videos on the page, guys. Thank you.